Would you stop for a torn backpack left outside a gas station long forgotten by time? Logan did, and inside it wasn't a lunchbox or forgotten book, but a trembling German shepherd puppy and a note that simply read, "Please don't let her be alone again." What would you do if love showed up like that? Drop a comment below. This story will break you and then put you back together. Subscribe to see what Logan finds next, because this isn't just about saving a dog. It's about saving a boy who was never meant to disappear. It was late November in Windmere, Wyoming, a town barely hanging onto its name. The wind always seemed to blow sideways there, dragging dry leaves and stray memories across the cracked sidewalks like they were reluctant to let go. On that gray afternoon, the air smelled faintly of pine smoke and rust. Snow hadn't come yet, but the sky was pregnant with it. Low, bloated clouds threatening to drop the season at any minute. Logan Pierce drove a dented red Chevy pickup down Highway 71, the dashboard rattling with every bump. The heater groaned faintly, and a half-empty thermos of black coffee steamed gently in the cup holder. His windshield wipers dragged across the glass, pushing away a mixture of fog and regret. At 48, Logan wore his solitude like a second skin. Once a respected fire captain in Cheyenne, his life had gradually hollowed out after a warehouse blaze left him with burns down his right leg and the guilt of a failed rescue that claimed 2 lives. But that wasn't what haunted him. It was Theo, his younger brother, the boy who'd idolized him, then vanished after a shouting match that neither of them knew would be their last. Logan had searched, first with desperation, then with discipline, and now with quiet ritual. Every week he drove routes mapped out in red ink across Wyoming's lesser-used roads, hoping for anything. A tip, a trace, a miracle. He saw the station just after mile marker 212. The sign was half collapsed, letters sun-faded, Frank's Gas and Grocery. The place had been shut down for at least a decade. Broken windows, vines swallowing the fence. One rusted-out gas pump stood like a monument to being forgotten. Logan wasn't sure why he slowed down. Maybe it was the gut feeling ex-firemen never fully shake. Maybe it was the way the breeze hit different when something was off. He parked beside the convenience store ruins and stepped out. The wind cut through his coat instantly. He pulled his scarf tighter and scanned the lot. That's when he saw it. A backpack. It was leaning against the old ice machine, zipped partially open. He almost dismissed it, probably trash left by some drifter. But something tugged at him. The way it sat there, too deliberate. Logan approached slowly, boots crunching gravel. The bag was navy blue with patches peeled at the corners, and a frayed strap hung limp. Then it moved, just slightly. He froze, knelt down, pulled the zipper. Inside was a puppy, a small German shepherd, no older than 6 months, curled into itself like a secret it didn't want anyone to know. Its fur was patchy from cold, with tufts of black and gold clinging to its thin frame. Big, alert ears and eyes that looked too old for a dog, so young, tired wide waiting. She didn't growl, didn't bark. She just watched him, unmoving, breathing shallowly like even hope took effort. Logan whispered, "Hey there, girl," and reached a gloved hand forward. She flinched slightly, but didn't pull away. That's when he saw the folded paper shoved in the side pocket of the bag. He pulled it out, unfolded carefully. "Her name is Clover. Please don't let her be alone again." That was it. No name, no phone number, no date. Just those 11 words, written in uneven, almost childlike handwriting. Logan felt the note settle in his chest like a stone. Clover. He looked back down. She hadn't taken her eyes off him. "Okay," he said softly. "You're coming with me." Gently, he lifted the backpack and cradled it in his arms. Clover didn't resist. She just trembled, pressed tightly into the nylon, as if it were the last thing she trusted in the world. By the time they reached his cabin on the outskirts of Windmere, snow had begun to fall in soft, quiet flurries. The town was nearly asleep already. Population under 500, most of them retirees or stubborn ranchers. Logan's place sat near the edge of Coyote Hollow, a sloped clearing framed by whispering aspens. The cabin smelled faintly of cedar and old flannel. He kicked the door shut behind him and carried Clover into the den. He set the bag gently near the wood stove, where the last logs were still glowing orange. Then he unzipped it fully and stepped back. She didn't move. Not at first. Logan sat across from her, boots off, scarf unwrapped. "Take your time," he murmured. "Not going anywhere." 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, Clover's head poked out, cautious, scanning. Her eyes flicked to Logan, then to the fire. Slowly, her front paws stepped onto the rug, raw and red underneath. She limped forward just slightly, then collapsed onto the floor, her head still tilted toward the door as if listening for footsteps that never came. Logan watched, unmoving. Something in her posture was too familiar, like someone else who was still waiting. Logan stood by the window with a chipped mug of coffee in one hand, watching the slow descent of snowflakes outside. It had snowed lightly overnight, just enough to dust the treetops and soften the sound of the world. Clover lay curled up on the thick wool rug near the stove, her eyes half-lidded but alert, always alert, especially if he moved too quickly or stepped too close. She hadn't touched the bowl of food he set out last night, nor the fresh water, though she sniffed at both like she was trying to remember what they were. He'd placed her backpack beside her, a quiet compromise. It seemed to soothe her, a shell she wasn't ready to leave behind. Logan sat down at the small oak table near the kitchen, where the contents of the backpack lay spread out before him. Among the crumpled dog treats, a small, cracked tennis ball, and a rolled-up hoodie that smelled faintly of campfire, he found it, the school label. It was stitched into the lining beneath the side zipper. Ash River Elementary, District 5. Ash River. That name thudded in his chest. He remembered the story, how the school had caught fire during winter break 2 years ago. No casualties, but the building had been condemned and shut down. He hadn't connected it to anything since. Until now. He picked up the patch and stared at it, a slow realization forming. Maybe Clover hadn't just been dumped. Maybe she had been placed. Carefully, desperately. And if the backpack came from Ash River Elementary, someone who once attended that school might be the link. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft creak of the cabin door. He turned, only to find the familiar face of Sarah Brooks standing in the doorway, snow melting off the brim of her wool cap. Sarah was in her late 30s, tall and lean with a frame hardened by years of outdoor work. Her sandy blonde hair was always tied back in a loose braid, and her eyes were a sharp green that missed very little. She was the town's part-time vet tech and full-time wildlife rehabber. She and Logan weren't close, but they had a quiet understanding born from shared loss. She had lost her husband in a hiking accident 4 winters ago, an event that had left her slower to trust and quicker to act. "I heard you took an estray," she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. "Marty from the feed store mentioned something about you buying puppy food." Logan nodded toward Clover. "Found her stuffed in a backpack near the old gas station on 71. Sarah crouched slowly a few feet away from the pup, her gloved hands low and non-threatening. Clover lifted her head, but didn't move. "Jesus," Sarah whispered, noticing the rawness around the dog's paws. "How long was she out there?" "No idea." "Long enough that she wouldn't even eat last night." Logan handed her the note. Sarah read it twice, lips pressed in a line. "She's young," she murmured. 5, maybe 6 months. The trauma's fresh. Could be she was with someone who couldn't care for her anymore. Or worse, someone who was caring and had to make an impossible choice. Logan said nothing. He was thinking of the Ash River patch again, of the fire, of the kids who never went back. Sarah stood, dusting off her knees. "Let me leave some ointment for her paws. And if you want, I can call around. See if anyone's reported a missing shepherd pup." "I'd appreciate it," Logan replied. "Also, could you check if any kids from Ash River ended up in social services? Especially ones from near the east edge of the district." Sarah's brow rose. "Why? I have a feeling this dog's more than abandoned. I think someone left her as a message." She hesitated but nodded. "I'll see what I can find out." As Sarah left, Logan turned back toward Clover. She was watching him, not fully trusting, but not afraid either. Like maybe, for the first time, she was trying to decide if she could believe in this quiet cabin and its quiet man. Later that day, Logan brought out an old dog crate from the shed. He'd used it last year to transport an injured coyote Sarah had patched up. He cleaned it, lined it with a flannel shirt, and set it in the corner near the stove. Clover sniffed it cautiously, then returned to her bag. She wasn't ready. He respected that. While she rested, he went back to the backpack. This time, he found something else, a torn page from a spiral notebook, half folded behind the liner. It was a crude drawing, a stick-figure boy with messy hair, holding hands with a dog that looked unmistakably like Clover. Above the figures were scrawled words in bold, shaky letters. Me plus Clover forever. Don't forget me. He stared at it for a long time. That night, he booted up his old laptop and began digging. Ash River. Fire. Evacuation. He searched for student rosters, incident reports, archived local news. Nothing detailed, but one name came up more than once in related articles. Caseworker Emily Wren, Department of Youth Services. She had overseen a few emergency placements after the school closure. Logan jotted the name down. He heard movement behind him. Clover had shifted just a few inches closer to the stove. She was still near the backpack, but now one paw rested outside it. Progress, maybe. As the fire cracked in the hearth, Logan leaned back in his chair. This wasn't just about a stray anymore. This was something else. Something with layers. And for the first time in a long while, he felt the old instinct return. Not just to fix, but to find. The storm rolled in faster than expected. Snow swept in from the north, thick and heavy, silencing the world outside Logan's cabin. By late afternoon, the trees stood still beneath their powdery coats, and the roads vanished in a white fog. Inside, the fire cracked gently, and Clover lay beside it. Not in the backpack anymore, but not far from it either. She had finally eaten a full meal that morning, and now rested with her nose on her front paws, watching the room with soft, wary eyes. Logan was at the table again, the torn drawing of Me plus Clover forever pinned to a corkboard beside the school label from Ash River. A cup of lukewarm coffee sat forgotten beside his elbow. He stared at his laptop, rereading an old newspaper article that mentioned the Department of Youth Services relocating students after the Ash River fire. The name that popped up again and again was Emily Wren. She was listed as a regional caseworker at the time of the fire. Now, 2 years later, her contact was buried behind bureaucratic layers. Logan had left 3 voicemails and sent 1 email, brief but specific. It surprised him when she called back just before sundown. "Is this Logan Pierce?" the voice on the line asked, crisp and focused. "Yes. You're Emily." "I am. I got your message. You said you found something unusual?" Logan glanced at Clover. "Yeah, a puppy. German Shepherd. About 6 months old. Found her zipped into a backpack, left at an abandoned gas station just off 71. There was a note and a school label from Ash River Elementary. Figured you'd want to know." A pause. Then, "I'll be there tomorrow." The line went dead. The next morning came with the sky scraped clean. Sunlight spilled across Windmere's frozen streets, making everything glitter like it was covered in diamonds. Logan was shoveling a narrow path from his front door to the shed when the car pulled up, an unremarkable gray Subaru dusted with road salt. A woman stepped out. Emily Wren was in her early 30s, medium height, with dark brown hair pulled back in a short ponytail. She wore a navy peacoat and thick boots, her breath clouding in the cold. Her features were sharp and precise. Clear gray eyes, a straight nose, and a mouth that seemed more accustomed to tight lines than laughter. She moved with a practiced efficiency, like someone always on alert. She held out her hand. "Logan Pierce." He nodded. "You came fast. Your message didn't leave room for delay." Inside, she took off her gloves and crouched near Clover, who had retreated slightly but didn't hide. Emily reached out slowly, letting the dog sniff her hand before touching her gently behind the ears. "She's cautious but not feral," Emily murmured. "Means someone cared. Recently." Logan watched her. "That's what I thought." Emily stood and studied the corkboard. Her eyes rested on the note, the school patch, and the drawing. This was inside the bag. He nodded. "There's more. Blanket, hoodie, chewed tennis ball." Emily folded her arms. "I've been working on a missing minors case for over a year now. Started with 1 boy, then 3, then 6. Some were thought to be runaways. others placed with family after foster transfers. Except no one could confirm where they ended up. All the names have one thing in common. Ash River, Logan guessed. She nodded. This dog might be a witness, she added. Or a breadcrumb. They sat down, Clover now resting behind Logan's legs. Emily pulled a tablet from her satchel and tapped through images. These are sketches and photos of the missing kids. Do any of them look familiar? He paused on one, a boy with messy dark hair and a wide smile, holding what looked like a shepherd puppy in his arms. That's him, Logan said quietly. That's Clover's boy. Emily exhaled. His name's Finn Jacobs. Went missing 10 months ago after being placed temporarily with a distant uncle in a remote cabin outside the Blackstone Preserve. Logan's eyebrows lifted. Blackstone? That's less than 20 miles from the gas station. Exactly. They decided to drive there together the next day. But first, Emily asked to spend the night. She didn't like the idea of traveling back through the snow just to return the next morning. Logan agreed. That evening, as Emily heated a can of soup on the stove, Logan sat by the fire with Clover at his feet. It had been a long time since he'd shared his home with anyone. The silence between him and Emily wasn't uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. You said you were a firefighter? She asked over her shoulder. Used to be. Cheyenne. Retired after a building collapse. Burned my leg. Left a few scars in the mine, too. She nodded. I lost my sister in a foster care placement gone wrong. That's why I took this job. Most days I feel like I'm still trying to make up for it. For the first time, Logan saw past the armor she wore. Her drive wasn't cold efficiency. It was grief sharpened into purpose. Later that night, Logan stood by the window while Emily slept on the couch beneath a thick wool blanket. Clover lay nearby, occasionally glancing toward the woman as if trying to decide whether she belonged. He looked back at the corkboard. So many names. So many missing pieces. But maybe, finally, one of them had come home. The wind returned just before dawn, howling low through the pines outside the cabin like a warning from something ancient. Logan was already awake, sipping hot coffee in silence, the firelight glinting against the steam rising from his mug. Clover lay beside the hearth, her eyes fixed on the front door as if she too felt the change in the air. A storm was coming, heavier than the last, thick with the kind of cold that stuck to your ribs. Emily stirred from the couch, rubbing the sleep from her eyes, her ponytail loose from the night. She blinked toward the kitchen, her voice hoarse from sleep. You always up this early? Logan shrugged. Old habits. Firehouse mornings. She nodded, pulling on her coat before making her way toward the table where Clover's backpack still Saturday. Anything else in the bag worth looking at? Already emptied it twice, Logan said. But something about the way Clover's ears perked when Emily approached the bag made Logan pause. He stood, walked over, and turned it upside down again, shaking gently. A soft thud, more like a whisper, hit the floor. It was a folded piece of wax paper, brittle and yellowed, stuck behind the liner. Logan knelt down, unfolded it carefully. It was a map, hand-drawn in pencil, creased and smudged but legible. It showed a rough outline of forest trails, a winding creek, a hand-drawn X marked at the edge of the paper with the words, "If someone finds Clover, go to the split oak at the end of Trail 16. He needs help." Emily moved closer, scanning the lines. Trail 16? That's part of Blackstone Preserve. It was shut down last year due to landslides, which would make it the perfect place to hide, Logan murmured. Or to be forgotten. Emily looked out the window at the rising wind. We should go, before this storm closes us in again. By mid-morning, they had packed gear into Logan's truck, blankets, first aid supplies, water, and a canteen of hot soup. Emily added a flare gun and an emergency radio from her field bag. Clover leapt into the back seat without hesitation, no longer needing coaxing. She stood watch at the window the entire ride. The trailhead to Trail 16 wasn't marked on any modern GPS. Logan found it by memory. An old fire access road, now overgrown and half buried in snow. He parked the truck off a frozen shoulder, and they proceeded on foot, crunching through fresh powder beneath thick pine canopies. The sky had gone iron gray again, and flakes began to fall in slow, determined swirls. Half a mile in, they passed an old hunting blind, collapsed in on itself. Then, farther along, Emily paused. "Do you hear that?" Logan stopped, scanning the woods. Silence. Then a faint crack, like a branch snapping under a foot. Not wind. "Animal?" he asked. "Maybe. Or maybe not." They moved more cautiously after that, stepping in time with the wind so as not to make extra noise. Clover remained alert, her body rigid, tail low but steady. She sniffed the air frequently, tugging slightly toward the trail ahead. Another half-hour passed before they saw it. A tree split down the middle, one half still standing, the other sheared clean as if struck by lightning years ago. The bark was blackened, and a crude rope swing still hung from one branch, swaying gently. Logan approached first, scanning the clearing. "Backpack," Emily said quietly, pointing to the base of the tree. It was half covered in snow, leaning against the trunk. Logan knelt, brushing the powder away. A new note was taped to it with duct tape. "I didn't mean to run, but I had to. Please don't tell them. If you found Clover, you're good people. Come quietly. Please. FJ." Emily exhaled slowly. "He's here." Or was. Suddenly, Clover bolted toward the tree line. "Clover, wait." Logan called, but she was already gone, disappearing into the brush. They followed quickly, ducking under low branches and through a gnarled thicket. Beyond, hidden by fallen logs and camouflage tarp, was a small structure, hand-built from branches, tarp, and scrap wood. Smoke rose in a thin line from a makeshift chimney. The smell of damp firewood and something metallic lingered in the air. "Someone's living here," Emily whispered. Logan stepped forward and called out softly, "Finn? My name's Logan. We found Clover. She led us here." A few seconds passed. Then a shadow moved behind the tarp. A boy emerged. Finn Jacobs looked smaller than in his photo. 13, maybe younger. His hair was shaggy, jaw hollow from hunger, eyes dark from sleepless nights. He wore 2 coats, one too big, and mismatched gloves. His shoes were torn, toes peeking through. In one hand, he held a broken flashlight. In the other, Clover's chewed tennis ball. He didn't speak, just stared. Behind him, Clover stood guard at his side, her tail thumping once. Emily knelt slowly. "It's okay, Finn. You're safe now." He looked between them, then whispered, "I thought no one would come." Logan stepped closer. "We're here, and we're not leaving you out here." For the first time, Finn's eyes began to well. He didn't cry, not fully, but he let the tennis ball drop into the snow. Clover nudged his side gently, and the boy leaned into her, pressing his forehead against her shoulder. The wind shrieked above the tree line like something alive as Logan, Emily, and Finn ducked into the shelter. It wasn't more than a crude lean-to, half dug into the slope, with walls of pine branches and tarp stitched together with nylon rope. Inside, the air was dry but cold, the ground packed and lined with a thin layer of hay. A tin can heater glowed faintly in the corner, the heat barely pushing back against the freezing air outside. Clover curled up close to Finn's side, her head resting on his knee. Finn held onto her with one hand while the other gripped the frayed end of the rope hammock he'd rigged along the wall. He looked smaller now, even smaller than when Logan had first seen him, not just in size, but in presence. His eyes flicked nervously between Logan and Emily, unsure whether to speak or flee. Emily crouched near the makeshift heater and began unpacking the supplies from her backpack. Blanket, gloves, sealed snacks, and a thermos of hot broth. She handed the cup toward Finn, who hesitated. "It's chicken," she said softly. "Warm. No string spunto." Finn took the thermos slowly. His fingers trembled as he sipped. After the second gulp, he blinked twice, like his body had forgotten warmth and now didn't know how to respond to it. Logan knelt down across from him, not too close. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the drawing, Clover and the boy holding hands, the one he'd found inside the backpack. "This is yours, isn't it?" Finn glanced at it. His face twisted, part fear, part shame, and he nodded. "I didn't know what else to do," he mumbled. "They said they were going to send me back. I heard them, my uncle, he said I was too much trouble. Said I'd be gone by Monday. I had to go." His voice cracked. and for a moment he turned his head into Clover's neck, hiding. Emily's tone was careful, firm. "You don't have to go anywhere now, Finn. We're here to help you." "But they always say that," he snapped. "At first, everyone says I'll be safe. Then they stop answering calls. Then the next place says I'm just temporary. Then," he didn't finish. Just let the silence fill in the blanks. Logan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You left Clover." "What?" Finn reached down and ran his hand along the dog's back. His voice was a whisper. "Because I knew they'd look for me. But not her. And if they caught me with her, they'd take her too. She was the only good thing I had. I didn't want her to get taken again." The firelight played across Logan's face, revealing a flicker of recognition. More than empathy, something personal. Deep. And then it hit him. The smoke. The ash. The terrified boy behind a locked door during the Ash River fire. He'd been there. Logan's mind reeled back. 2 years ago, crawling through the second-floor hallway of the old school. He had pulled a boy out from under a collapsed ceiling. The kid had a cut above his eye, slit down his arms. He never got his name. Now he did. "Finn," Logan said slowly, his voice rough. "I think we've met before." Finn looked up, confused. "The fire. At Ash River. You were hiding in the art room, behind the broken cabinets. I pulled you out." Finn stared at him, mouth slightly open, then narrowed his eyes. "You were the one with the burnt leg," he said quietly. "You were bleeding." Logan nodded. "Still got the scar." They sat in that connection for a moment, the tension briefly suspended in recognition. Emily leaned back, watching the exchange without interruption. Then, outside, the sound returned, barely audible through the storm, but enough to make Logan go still. Footsteps. Logan signaled with his hand for silence. Emily instinctively reached into her coat and wrapped her fingers around the flare gun. Finn sat rigid, breathing shallowly. Another sound, this time closer. Not just footsteps. Boots. Crunching deliberately through the snow. Logan moved toward the tarp entrance and peeked through a narrow slit. Nothing at first. Then, movement behind a tree. A tall figure in a black parka. Hood up. No light. Just watching. "Someone's there," Logan whispered. "Not sure who." "Could be a ranger," Emily said, though she didn't sound convinced. "Or worse," Logan muttered. "Finn, has anyone come looking for you out here before?" The boy shook his head. "Not this deep, but I always cover my tracks." Emily pressed the flare gun into Logan's hand. "If they come any closer, use it. We need a distraction." Logan nodded, then turned to Finn. "You trust me?" Finn swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. "Then we're getting out of here. Now." They moved fast. Emily gathered the essentials while Logan kept watch. Clover remained pressed against Finn, as if sensing the danger. When they slipped out the back of the shelter, using the brush and boulders for cover, Logan counted the time between gusts of wind to cover their movement. The flare would be the last resort. They hiked for nearly a mile before Emily spotted the glint of the truck's windshield through the trees. The storm was thick now, but not blinding. Then, movement again. Behind them, Logan spun and fired the flare high into the sky. The red streak burst through the air like a comet, casting light on the dark figure closing in from the trees. The man stopped in his tracks, just briefly illuminated, then turned and vanished. They reached the truck and piled in, Logan starting the engine with shaking hands. Emily sat in the back with Finn and Clover, her eyes still scanning the forest even as the taillights faded into white. The morning sun rose slow and golden over Windmere, casting long streaks of light across the snow-covered valley. From Logan's cabin window, the world looked peaceful for once, still blanketed, still cold, but not cruel. Inside, the warmth of the fire and the faint smell of brewed coffee created something unfamiliar to Logan. Comfort. Finn was still asleep on the couch, wrapped in a thick quilt, one arm slung across Clover, who snored softly beside him. Her legs twitched in her sleep, chasing something in a dream that didn't seem like a nightmare for once. The old backpack now hung quietly on the wooden coat hook by the door, no longer holding fear, just memory. Logan stood near the stove, hands wrapped around a warm mug, watching the boy and the dog in silence. He wasn't a man of many words, but something in the stillness of that moment told him he was no longer just surviving out here. Something had shifted. An hour later, Emily returned. She parked her Subaru carefully on the compacted snow and stepped out with her usual efficiency. She wore a long gray coat over a navy turtleneck and jeans tucked into snow boots. Her face was calm, but serious. Today was the day things would become official or not. "Morning," she greeted as she entered, shaking off the chill. "He's still sleeping?" "Yeah, he's been out since midnight." She poured herself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. "I spoke with the county this morning. Emergency guardianship can be processed within 72 hours, but we'll need to take Finn to the center first. It's protocol. He'll be placed temporarily for the paperwork. But if you're serious, you'll get him back by the end of the week." Logan didn't flinch. "I'm serious." Emily's eyes softened. "I figured, but it's good to hear it." They sat in silence for a beat before Finn's sleepy voice came from the couch. "Do I have to go back?" Both turned to see him sitting up, rubbing his eyes. Clover had already risen and padded to his side, tail wagging gently. Emily approached slowly, kneeling beside him. "Just for a few days. But you'll be safe, Finn. We'll come visit. Logan's going to file to be your guardian." Finn looked at Logan, searching his face for confirmation. Logan nodded. "You'll come back here. That's a promise." The boy swallowed. "What if they don't let me?" "They will," Emily assured. "And if not, I'll fight until they do." Finn clutched Clover's collar. "Can she come with me?" Emily hesitated. Pets usually aren't allowed in transitional housing. But Logan interrupted. "She stays with me. She'll be waiting when you come back." Finn didn't smile, but he nodded. He trusted them now, not entirely, but enough. That afternoon, the drive to the Child Services office in Fairford was quiet. Finn leaned against the window, watching the hills pass by in a blur. He had changed into clean jeans and a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big. Logan had offered to trim his hair, but Finn refused. He liked it messy. The center was a rectangular brick building with steel doors and a peeling sign that read, Department of Youth and Family Services. Inside, the smell of printer toner and cafeteria lunch hung faintly in the air. At the front desk stood a woman in her 50s with bright red glasses and short silver hair. Her name tag read Connie Walters. She had the kind of practiced kindness that came from years of balancing bureaucracy and broken families. "Ah, you must be Finn Jacobs," she said, offering a clipboard. "And Mr. Pierce?" Logan nodded, towering over the counter. Connie smiled gently. "We've got a temporary room prepared, and our intake counselor will speak with him shortly. I understand you're applying for guardianship." "I am." She handed him a stack of forms. "Fill these out, and we'll begin the background and home check this week. Shouldn't take long, especially if Miss Wren here is assisting." Emily stepped forward. "You'll find everything in order." While they worked through the paperwork, Finn sat in a waiting area with Clover, who had been granted a short exception to enter the building just for goodbye. She lay quietly at his feet, unmoving, eyes never leaving him. When it was time, Connie gently explained that Clover had a return with Logan. Finn nodded but didn't speak. As Logan knelt to leash Clover, Finn dug into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He pressed it into Logan's hand. "What's this?" "Just something to keep," Finn whispered. Logan unfolded it carefully. It was a letter written in Finn's uneven but determined handwriting. "You saved me twice. I won't forget it. Clover and me. We found the right person. Thank you." Logan blinked hard but said nothing. When they turned to leave, Clover looked back at Finn and let out a soft whine. He knelt and whispered into her ear, then stood back and watched until she disappeared around the corner. That evening, Logan sat alone on the porch. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. Inside, the cabin felt too quiet. The backpack still hung by the door, untouched since the morning. Logan stared at it for a long time before standing, taking it down, and gently brushing off the dust. He hung it back up, this time on the center hook. Clover walked to him and pressed her head gently into his leg, sensing something had changed again. Logan reached down and scratched behind her ears. "Don't worry," he whispered. "He's coming back." And in that soft, silent moment, he realized he believed it. Sometimes, the things we leave behind aren't lost. they're waiting to lead us home. This story reminds us that even in the coldest moments, love can survive, trust can be rebuilt, and family isn't always about blood. It's about who stays when everyone else walks away. If this touched your heart, please share this story with someone who needs hope today. Comment men if you believe that no act of love, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the quiet miracles around us. May God bless you and protect every child, every animal, and every heart still waiting to be found.